Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to ask unanimous consent to speak as if in morning business for 20 minutes.
Without objection, it is so ordered.
Thank you. Mr. President, we have watched with horror the unfolding disaster in the Gulf. We have seen precious lives lost, hard-earned livelihoods hammered, treasured ways of life imperiled. We have seen the largest deployment of resources ever against an environmental disaster. We have seen astonishing corporate negligence. But we have seen something else, too, something that ought to be a lasting lesson from this catastrophe. We have seen the revolting specter of an agency of government subservient to, captive to, the industry it is supposed to regulate. From the Minerals Management Service, supposed to regulate deep-sea oil drilling, here's what we have seen. From the 2008 Inspector General report on MMS's royalty in kind program based in Colorado, senior executives steering lucrative contracts to an outside company created by the executives, staff failing to collect millions of dollars in royalties owed to the American people, and allowing oil and gas companies to revise their own multi-million-dollar bids, staff accepting gifts and money from oil and gas companies with whom the office was conducting official business, and staff participating in social events with industry representatives that included illegal drug use and sex. From the IG report, the Inspector General's report released last month on the MMS office in Lake Charles, Louisiana, the district manager telling investigators, obviously, we're all oil industry. Employees accepting numerous gifts from companies doing business with MMS, including a trip to the 2005 Peach Bowl on a private airplane, skeet shooting contests, hunting and fishing trips, and golf tournaments. An MMS inspector conducting 4 inspections of oil drilling platforms while negotiating a job for himself with the owner of the platforms, and finding, guess what, no violations during those inspections. And a 2007 Inspector General report into the MMS Minerals Revenue Management Office cited, and I quote, significant issues worthy of separate investigation, including ethical lapses, program mismanagement, and process failures. As my hometown Providence Journal wrote in a recent editorial, the Deepwater Horizon accident has made it painfully clear that in its current form, MMS is a pathetic public guardian. Neither it nor BP was prepared for a disaster of this magnitude, and MMS's cozy relationship with industry is a big reason why. I agree with the Providence Journal. The scope, the extent, the insidious nature of corporate influence in regulatory agencies of government, this question of regulatory capture is something we should attend to here. It is the lesson. And it raises the question beyond the Minerals Management Service, how far does this corporate influence reach into our agencies of government? The wealth of the international corporate world is staggering. The 5 biggest oil companies just this quarter posted profits of $23 billion. That's a 23 with 12 zeros behind it. In just one quarter, the Republican appointees on the Supreme Court just overturned decades of precedent and 100 years of practice to give these big corporations freedom to spend unlimited funds in our American elections. Put it to scale. Consider $23 billion of pure profit just in one quarter by big oil, and compare the Obama and McCain campaigns together spent about $1 billion in the last election. Do the math. For 5% of one quarter's profits, big oil could outspend both American presidential campaigns. That may be some politician's idea of a happy day, because that is who they work to please. But it is wrong, and it needs to be stopped. But think, if that's what corporate influence could do in a national election, think of what those vast, powerful tentacles of corporate influence can do to a little government agency like the Minerals Management Service. Revolving doors to lucrative jobs in the industry, so you're set for life. Sports tickets, gifts, drugs. Constant, relentless lobbying pressure and threats of litigation. Steadily inserting industry operatives into regulatory positions. Inch by inch, the tentacles of industry reach further and further into the regulator until it silently and invisibly comes under industry control and becomes the industry's puppet until it is serving the special interests and not the public interest. This is no new phenomenon. Marva Bernstein wrote about regulatory capture more than 50 years ago. He explained that a regulator tends over time to become more concerned with the general health of the industry and tries to prevent changes which will adversely affect it, to become passive toward the public interest. This, he said, is a problem of ethics and morality as well as administrative method. And he called it a blow to democratic government and responsible political institutions. Ultimately, this leads to what he called surrender. Quote, the Commission finally becomes a captive of the regulated groups. If you don't want to go back half a century for a discussion of regulatory capture, look to last week's Wall Street Journal editorial page, where a senior fellow at the Cato Institute writes, quote, by all accounts, MMS operated as a rubber stamp for BP. It is a striking example of regulatory capture. Agencies tasked with protecting the public interest come to identify with the regulated industry and protect its interests against that of the public. The result, government fails to protect the public. End quote.